Hello, I'm Elizabeth with Hamilton Native Outpost, and this morning I would like to share with you what is a yellow tag and why is it important. A yellow tag is basically a certificate of authenticity that the seed was born and raised in Missouri. So what exactly does that mean? Well, I think of it like a birth certificate. So a birth certificate certifies where you were born, it certifies who your parents are, and this yellow tag does much the same thing. I talk about Missouri yellow tags because we are in Missouri and we use the Missouri yellow tagging system here in our state. But other states also have yellow tag systems for the seed that was born and raised in their state. So what is it that a yellow tag certifies? Well, it certifies a couple things. One, it certifies that genetically that seed is from a certain location, let's say the state of Missouri. So in other words, when the bison roamed freely here on the plains, its great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents lived in the state of Missouri in a certain location. So let's take Golden Prairie. There is, let's say, pale purple coneflower growing on Golden Prairie. If we certify that the genetics of that pale purple coneflower from Golden Prairie, we actually take an inspector out to the field and we say, hey, you see the yellow cone or the pale purple coneflower here on this prairie. It is genetically from here, and he can look at it and he can say, yeah, this is a prairie. It's never been plowed. The historical records show that it's never been plowed. And then we can take him to the field where we planted that seed and show him that indeed that field is in the state of Missouri as well. So both the genetics, which is where did it live when the bison were here, and where it was grown, so where it's being grown today, both of those places are in the state of Missouri, and we take the inspector there and show him that. So it's actually a third-party inspected process. The Missouri Crop Improvement Association has inspectors that come and verify these fields, verify the genetics of these fields for a genetic source, so we call it a G0, generation zero of the seed. So this is a never been disturbed remnant ecosystem that would have been here when the bison were here. These only need certified once. However, a planting is certified each year because what you don't want is somebody to have planted the seed in a certain location and then they kill that planting or the planting dies naturally and then they're still certifying the seed from somewhere else that they have gotten that is not yellow tagged, but they're certifying it as yellow tagged. So the inspector comes each year for a planting and says, yes, it still exists, it's still there. So why is it that you would buy yellow tag seed? Well, it certifies a couple things. Because it is certifying the genetics, we know that because historically the genetics of that plant, the ancestors of that plant, grew within the state of Missouri. And it's not that the state of Missouri is anything magic, it's just the state of Missouri means it was grown nearby. It might be just fine to have something grown in eastern Kansas and you're planting it in western Missouri. That would be totally fine. However, the state of Missouri is a political boundary that it's easy to follow. So it certifies that the genetics of that came from close by. Why is it that the genetics would be important for a plant? Well, it certifies that it's adapted to our soils, it's adapted to our climate, so the genetics have a memory for, oh yeah, it's often dry at this time of year, or often we get big rains at this time of year. So that plant does its life processes at the proper time. It's also adapted to our wildlife, to our pollinators. Many pollinators have a need for a plant to bloom in order for them to carry out their life cycle. Say some of the native bees, you know, there is a coneflower bee that only collects pollen and nectar from coneflowers. And so if the coneflowers are not blooming at the proper time, what impact does it have on that bee? So for a purpose of, say, wildlife or pollinators, a yellow tag certification is really helpful to know that the seed is adapted to the planting that is going to happen, likely within the state of Missouri. So is yellow tag seed better than other seed? So let's take big blue stem. Would you rather have Missouri native yellow tagged big blue stem? Is that better or worse than, say, OZ70 big blue stem? Well, the answer to that is really, it depends. So if you're doing a wildlife planting and you want the big blue stem out there, Missouri native is a really excellent choice. It's genetically from Missouri, it's adapted, it's going to bloom at the time that our climate dictates it should, when the day length is just right. So it's a really excellent choice. However, if your goal is to do forage planting, Missouri native is not necessarily a bad choice, but there are cultivars, say the OZ70 big blue stem. The OZ70 was actually selected for forage production. So sometimes the choice may be to go with OZ70, one of the cultivars. So, and it was not selected in that, it was basically just selected. Somebody said, hey, look at that plant. This is a really good one for forage. Let's collect the seed off of that and plant that out. So the OZ70 is a great choice for forage applications. The Missouri native is a great choice for wildlife and pollinator applications, the Missouri native yellow tag seed. A common question I get is, can I yellow tag my cultivar of seed? So for instance, the OZ70 big blue stem or cave and rock switchgrass, Canlow switchgrass, can I get a yellow tag on that seed? The answer is no, because you can only yellow tag seed that has not been improved, that hasn't been selected for something. So for these cultivars that I mentioned, they have went out and they have selected the ones that were good for whatever application they were developing that for, whether that was pretty aesthetics, whether that was forage application, they selected ones. The Missouri native seed can't be selected. It's simply what was growing here when the bison were here, roaming freely, what was growing here that has not been selected by anything other than nature, and what has lived and thrived and survived and is adapted to our sites. So let's go ahead and take a look at a yellow tag and see the parts and pieces of it. Here's the kind, so it tells us what species is it that is certified here. So Virginia wild rye in this case, or Elmus virginicus is the Latin name on it. Here's the lot number. Lot number is an important piece of information that's basically the unique identifier of that lot. It was grown in Missouri. The terms source and origin are often quite confusing. They sound backwards to what they should be. Origin is where it was grown. So I think of grown in origin, and I think of genetic source. So the genetic source was also Missouri. The seed was collected, the seeds was sourced and collected in the state of Missouri, it says on this tag. But so the term source or genetics, genetic source. So where did its ancestors live when the bison were here? It also states the generation of the seed. So generation 0 is the original genetic source of something. That's where it was growing out on the prairie. That's where the remnant, never been plowed, never been planted, plants were. And so generation 0 is where it starts. If you harvest that seed and plant it, that becomes generation 1. If you harvest that seed and plant it, that's generation 2. So this seed in this case is generation 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's a combination of different genetic generations. This is the seed of that lot. Because we have that yellow tag, we know the genetics of this seed. This seed might look exactly like the seed in the next bag that's the same species, but the genetics are different. So because we have the yellow tag and associated with a lot number, and we keep track of those genetics, we know those genetics. And also because we have a seed test, or that quality test that's on that white tag, we know what the quality of this seed is. Both of those things are third-party independently certified or tested. So this is a yellow tag, and when you get seed, they're often, if it's sold by the Pure Live Seed Pound, will also be a white tag with the seed. So there's the yellow tag and the white tag. The white tag has a different function. It talks about the quality of the seed. It tells the purity, it tells the germination, so it tells the pure live seed percentage. These are important concepts, but it's a whole different thing than what the yellow tag does. So in conclusion, yellow tag seed talks about where the genetics of the seed come from mostly. It talks about when the bison were here, where is it that seed's ancestors grew. It's a great option for plantings such as wildlife-focused plantings or restoration-focused plantings because it certifies basically that seed is adapted to our soils, to our climate, to our biota, to our pollinators even. If you're interested in doing a planting with yellow tag seed, contact us and we can let you know what's available at any given time. Also, if you're interested in learning more about native seeds and potentially we discussed pure live seed a little bit today, check out our website for more articles and videos at hamiltonnativeoutpost.com.